a second unit was added, but they obviously have a different approach now because at that time they were in full uniform and not in the plain clothes, and so it was a very different model. But I'm glad to hear that you're looking at expanding it because it's a very needed service throughout the country, really. But I think we're a leader in that in our state with it, so that's wonderful.
So just to follow up on that, we're trying to do two-prong approach. Number one is to increase those units because they're the specialties, they're the specialists, but also provide the training for each officer walking the streets. Now they won't be the expert, but at least they'll have some basic understanding, and we'll make sure we catch up with everybody. Because one of the things that happen, you get new information, and every year you increasing the training to the cadets. So the newest cadet is the newest model that comes out of the academy. They know everything. But the one that's been there 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, they missed an awful lot of the new stuff. So the idea is to just try to catch up with these folks and make sure we provide that training to each and every one of them. Because every year there's so much required training by the state. They often don't have time to do other things. So this is going to codify this training into law and require that they have it every year.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is something which has been quite, I guess, near to the hearts of our commission and an area which has been a cause of quite a lot of concern for a long time, and that's transportation. So let me let Jay introduce Dan Dalton.
Hi, folks. Dan reached out to me. Dan is a consultant working with the County Department of Public Works on the Transit Development Plan. Dan reached out to me and the commission via the commission posted email address on the county website. We had a talk, and I felt that immediately the commission would want to engage with this process. I scheduled a quick meeting with myself, Dan, and Doug Smith. So we had a substantive conversation about transportation issues, mobility, and then I shared a little bit of this with Ben when we were crafting the agenda for today's meeting. I did send Dan survey findings that the commission has already expressed with regard to transportation, the consolidated plan process, which the commission participated in May, through dialogue, but also through a survey administered in, I believe, in December. And I know that even through the COVID, I think I've come to the commission with some kind of formal county government question. Tell us what you need. Tell us where the gaps are in services. We've done that like 4 times in the past 6 or 7 months. So I kind of get it. I feel like sometimes people are surveyed out. Oh, they're asking me for feedback, and I'm going to talk about something I've talked about 6 times already. But, I think we presented Dan with earlier findings, and I encourage through this process, Dan's going to present some slides and some facts, and then this is an opportunity to provide feedback to the extent the commission wishes in this conversation today, here and now. And we have a survey that was sent out, and I got 1 response. So that's why I'm saying maybe people are surveyed out, or maybe they want to do it live on TV. That could be the thing. So Dan, I'm going to unmute you. I did hear a little bit of feedback. Are you there, Dan?
I am. Can you hear me? I'm unmuted myself now, so hopefully you can hear me too then, Jay.
Yeah, that sounds very good. I'm going to mute myself, and Dan, why don't you try and share the screen and give it a go?
Let's see. if I can just. Can anyone see my screen by chance? No, I can't see. Let's see. I'm hoping to see here. Fortunately, I can't see everybody when I bring my PowerPoint up. I'm going to click off. Can everyone see if I can click it off now, can everyone see my screen now? You cannot. Okay. Jay, let's see.
No.
I can try, Dan, if you want.
Oh, let me try again. Here we go. I hit one more button here. Let's see. How about now?
We got it.
Perfect. Thank you. Great. Thanks, Jay, for that introduction. I'm joined by Joey Seltniks from our office too. Again, we're both with the KFH Group. We're a Bethesda-based transit planning firm. We've worked with every transit system in Maryland numerous times in conducting transit plans. And also we work nationally too. So we bring both local experience and also national experience. And for what it's worth, I'm actually grew up in Baltimore County and went to Catonsville High School. So I don't know if that gives me any credibility, but obviously my knowledge of Baltimore County, even before this project, was pretty extensive, just growing up in the Baltimore area. What I wanted to do was kind of give you a little bit of background about the transit planning process, and then really want to jump into some things that we've learned, and then also, as Jay mentioned, hopefully have some conversation today while we have time. And also, again, you'll have the opportunity to give us ongoing input. We've received a lot of input already, but we will be more time after this meeting today to give us more than two. So, and Joey will take copious notes of anything you tell us, and also he'll keep me straight and jump in with anything that I've lost then too. So just quickly, a transit development plan, or a TDP, is one that's actually required. All the local transit systems in Maryland that receive federal and state funding through the MTA's Office of Local Transit Support are required to complete a transit development plan, or TDP, every 5 years. These plans then, we'll talk in a minute about really kind of the overall objectives of the planning process, but it's also used by the local jurisdictions and local transit systems as the basis for preparing their annual grant application to the MTA. So again, the MTA is the recipient of federal transit funding that goes out to the local transit systems, in addition to some state funding programs also. For county, there's two different types of funding that the county receives from the MTA. There's federal funding that is for the rural areas, so obviously the northern part of Baltimore County. And then there's also state funds specifically for seniors and people with disabilities. The program's been in place since the 80s, actually, that supports that. Those are the two programs that specifically Baltimore County receives funding through through the MTA Office of Local Transit Support. So just overall, the TDP objectives then too is that this is an opportunity every 5 years to kind of build upon what the county's kind of vision for transit services are, and to kind of formulate those ideas. It's also obviously an opportunity to review and assess the current transit services in the county. And that's obviously specific in Baltimore County. This is an assessment of the county ride system. I should point out the fact that obviously we receive a lot of input and there's a lot of conversation about mobility and about MTA services that operate into the county. And take into account, but I should note the fact that this is a transit plan for Baltimore County, not actually an MTA transit plan. As you know, the MTA went through a rather major restructuring several years ago. So we have to take those services into account and how they can complement, and any services of Baltimore County need to take those into account. But again, the assessment and evaluation of services is primarily of the county ride system. But through this process, this is where then we have the opportunity to identify unmet transit needs, and we'll cover those in just a little bit and hopefully get some more input from you. And again, it's an opportunity to develop the vision for the next 5 years. Is this a short range plan? So a lot of times there may be discussion about more long-term current transit services that we can document, but for this, it's a short range plan. It's not a 20 or 30 range plan. It's a short 5-year plan from that standpoint. And again, that's where we look at actually opportunities to improve services, either services wise, organizational changes, or any potential expansions during a 5-year period. We always talk about the fact that sadly, not everything usually in a 5-year transit plan gets implemented. But if it's not in the transit plan, it definitely won't be implemented. So that's why we want to always have the opportunity to make sure that we cover and include potential opportunities for expanding, improving services. And again, obviously, anytime we're doing a plan, we're still not sure about how funding is going to impact that. But if it's not in the plan, then it definitely won't be funded in the future. So we've conducted a pretty broad needs assessment. As you can imagine, we kicked this plan off right before COVID hit and for the pandemic. So our needs assessment and our outreach opportunities have been obviously impacted by that. If otherwise, I'd be with you in person today instead of being through video. So we've conducted a rider survey of county ride customers, county ride specifically county ride people who are registered for the services. Often we would do that on a vehicle and actually go out and talk to people. Well, since services are limited, we did actually a mailing, but Joey can attest we've received over 700 responses to the county ride survey that we mailed out to people. So we've gotten a tremendous response for that. So those people, at least for the most part, were not surveyed out. While we understand that for the most part, people that it becomes a point where that just becomes not as effective. But from the county ride people and customers have given us a lot of input. We are actually right now still compiling that information. We have some of the data, and I'll talk about that in a minute then too. We also did a broader community online survey. This survey is primarily to get information and input from people who generally are not public transit users. And so it kind of gives us that broader perspective. As Jay mentioned, we've done some stakeholder interviews, and Jay and Doug, we appreciate their time to have those discussions, and we've had some individual discussions with other people. We still can conduct interviews now. So if there's anybody in the commission now that would like to actually have a one-on-one conversation, we'd be glad to do that then too. The process is being led by an advisory committee that particularly is being headed up by the Department of Public Works and the Department of Aging. As you may know, on July 1st, County Ride transitioned from Department of Aging to the Department of Public Works. So both those agencies, those departments are actually on the committee then too. I need to point out, I can talk today a little bit about some of our findings and particularly some potential opportunities, but we actually have an advisory committee next week where I really will need to get more of the blessing from that. So if I'm a little bit broad in my discussion today, it's only because of the fact that we haven't run all the alternatives and recommendations past the advisory committee yet. Obviously, we need to do that first. We're also open. Jay, I don't know if you're going to have the ability to join the committee so that way Jay can actually provide also his input from a commission standpoint, kind of be the liaison with you all going forward then too. We've also completed an extensive demographic analysis. Obviously, people with disabilities and older adults are a prime component of that analysis. And the previous plans and studies, and Jay again has passed along the community survey you've conducted, made some notes, your strategic plan that you just adopted this morning. We would want to include that objective related to transportation actually in our plan too, because we recognize this planning process is not happening in a vacuum, and the fact that we want to have as holistic as possible. So that's why we will take all, there's other plans and studies too that we've already documented, but we want to make sure we incorporate the ones that you all have been working on too and include that information going forward. So real quick, this slide has kind of a broad areas of what we've heard so far, and probably from your standpoint, nothing actually that you didn't know about already, but we've heard obviously the need for expanded transportation services. Related to County Ride from the standpoint of expanding the specialized services that County Ride provides, and we'll again have a next slide that will go in a little bit more detail about that. But overall, just in having services outside the current service areas, either where MTA serves and with public transit, where mobility serves based on the ADA requirements. And so there's a couple of things that we're going to be looking at related to expanding transit services. And again, I'll focus a little bit more on County Ride in a minute. Through this process, we also heard about the need for more reliable services. Some of that has been mobility service related. And again, that's a little bit out of our scope, but we are documenting that, but also related to county ride because, as you know, county ride is a specialized service. It's all demand response and picking people up at their home, taking them there where they go. There's a lot of variables in that type of service. And not surprising, we've heard the fact that people wish it was a little bit more reliable and they could count on it a little bit more, especially from a timing standpoint. One thing we've heard a lot about and we're focusing on is some first mile, last mile transit connections, particularly first mile, last mile connections to MTA services then, where people are just living a little bit beyond where the MTA services are, and it's just not possible for them to be access that. And especially these kind of connections where they go beyond, if it's an ADA paratransit or mobility opportunity, where they go beyond that 3/4 mile designation. So we're looking at those opportunities. We've also heard about local community service. People have told us that they like that opportunity. Now, if you know, there is the plans in effect for the Towson Circulator service. And so there may be opportunities in other local communities and also some opportunities maybe to connect different suburbs, different communities within Baltimore County. Right now, as you know, the Baltimore MTA services runs from the county into the city, but we're looking at some opportunities to connect different suburban locations that, obviously around the Beltway and around Baltimore County then. We've talked to people related to employment, especially people at either retail locations, and we've heard a lot about the need to actually expand services for employment locations and helping people get the jobs, and obviously particularly and for evening services that right now where services are limited then too. We've also heard from people who have obviously used more, especially county ride and more specialized services, about the travel times on those services and having those be more direct. And then more flexible transportation services. And this is one thing that we are really looking at is micro transit and those type of opportunities where I guess everyone's more familiar with now with Uber and Lyft, which is basically in the last couple of years changed the transportation landscape. What we're looking at, a lot of transit systems around the country are looked at how they handle similar type services, but services that are more affordable for people and more flexible than an Uber or Lyft trip. And so that's one thing that we are going to be talking to the advisory committee next week about how those services, it really seems in Baltimore County, there's a lot of opportunities. Joey and some other coworkers we've worked on some microtransit projects in several different areas, and including Montgomery County, Maryland, where we just assessed their flexible transportation service they put in place. We want to use all that information then and that knowledge to see how we can improve transit services and expand transportation options in Baltimore County then too. So again, that's kind of overall what we've heard and some of the things that we're looking at. The next step in this process will be actually then kind of fine tuning and getting more of those things. In a minute, we'll get your chance for you to give us a little bit more comment on those too. Real quick, as I go back here, just want to talk a little bit about county ride, and probably most people in the commission are pretty familiar with the area, but what we've heard a lot is the fact that even though county ride, the input that we receive, especially from riders, is how much they love the drivers, they love the services in place. There are limitations, and obviously the fact that this county ride is primarily obviously just in the county, and people have needs that go into Baltimore City. Right now, the county ride only serves the partner hospitals. I think there's 8 or 9 hospitals in Baltimore City that are connected to. And the only general public services in the county are, as I mentioned, through the federal funding that the county receives in the very rural parts of the county. The rest of it is all, people 60 and over or people with disabilities, which is great for that service and serving those population groups, but the general public transit services in the county obviously then are limited. And obviously, county ride's limited in the service span too, operating right now from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And in fact, actually, I think about 4:30 is about the last trip they provide. And as we know, people's needs go beyond those times. And obviously, I know we've seen in surveys a lot already about the need for weekend services then too. And from a capacity standpoint, county ride then too, to try to serve as many people as they can, they actually then limit 2 trips in a 1-week period. And so obviously that limits people's abilities, especially if there are regular trips they need to go to several times a trip, then those trip opportunities are limited. we're taking all those into account then then we try to come up with some recommendations and some ideas for expanding either county ride services or other transportation services that can try to help fill some of those gaps. So that was about a couple months worth of work in about 10, 15 minutes of presentation. Jay, I don't know if it's possible then either now or again, ongoing. As you mentioned, people have completed our surveys and we'll take that information to account, but I didn't know if we could from the commission on other areas, specific destinations that would like to service and other improvements they would actually like to see related to transportation.
He said something.
Hi, folks. I just unmuted everybody. So Dan, are you interested in hearing some feedback?
Which is my primary feedback.
Yeah, I think we got a lot of noise in the background now.
Are we done with sharing screens?
We can, I mean, the best thing is, and I can send it back, Jay, I think you can send it back to the group. There's Joey and I's contact information if people need it afterwards then.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'll stop sharing then.
So Dan, this is Mike Willis. Can you hear me?
Mike, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Dan, thanks very much for your report. I'm curious, when is this finished and sort of what's the process for getting the county to buy in to the regional report?
Actually, this planning process will wrap up by December. Several months is when we'll be working with the advisory committee and fleshing out more of the details. We are taking in, again, some of the other regional planning efforts also.
Excuse me, Dan. Hey, would you mute everybody and let individuals on?
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Dan.
Okay, let's just try and talk about the rules. I unmuted everybody. I'm sorry, I muted everybody just now. So we'll try and talk one at a time. And Mike Bullis, let's give Mike Bullis the floor for a period of time. Mike, can you unmute yourself? Let me try it. Mike Bullis.
Yeah, am I unmuted now?
Yeah, I can
Okay,
hear you.
fine. Dan, I guess my question was, is this, as you may recall, I worked on the regional transit plan group. Does this feed into that plan?
More so, we are taking into the recommendations from the Baltimore County standpoint from that plan. Actually, that's one of the plans and studies that I mentioned that we will incorporate into one section of the Baltimore County Transit Plan. So there is some correlation between two. This plan, though, is specific to Baltimore County, while the other one was, as you know, then more general for the region then. But there are some of the findings in there and some of the recommendations that we are taking into account and also will document in the Baltimore County plan.
Okay, thank you very much.
Dan, can you, and I'm not sure if everybody is aware that, and if I'm correct, that County Ride is no longer under the Department of Aging. It's under Baltimore County government itself. Can you talk a little bit about that? And also, you've referred to I guess, an advisory group, a committee. Is there people on that committee that have individuals with disabilities?
Thanks, Ben. Your first point, actually, yeah, as of July 1st, the County Ride Services transitioned from the Department of Aging to the Department of Public Works. What I've been told is that transition, part of that was the fact that actually that way transportation and especially public transit had more of a focus, and probably because of maybe the County Ride being in the Department of Aging, that people thought the services were only for seniors when, well, as I mentioned, the fact there are some services for the general public. And some of the things that we'll be looking, and I'm pretty sure we'll be recommending, will be more for the general public, serving people with disabilities, but also being for the general public. So I think that was part of the mindset in the county making that change. Again, I wasn't technically involved with that, but that was one change that happened during the course of our planning effort too. We do not actually have specific individuals necessarily with disabilities on the committee. The committee was set up by the county, and more it's different agencies from the county. But one thing that we saw was lacking was, and that's why I reached out to Jay and I talked to our contact with the Department of Public Works to reach out to Jay so that we made sure that we got the aspect of people with disabilities and the commission's aspect. So our public outreach for this has been adversely altered by COVID, because if we would have had a series probably of some different maybe community workshops or different area opportunities to get input from people, and obviously that's been limited through this process. So we tried to reach out and try to be as holistic as we can using other ways, and we definitely got a lot of input from the countywide customers too. But Jay, anybody else?
Yeah, I think the biggest issue with individuals with disability, what our commission's has looked at in past years, was getting to jobs, getting to places of employment is one of the key points. We have some programs at Community College of Baltimore County of training individuals for different types of positions, but then they can't get to a job site because of lack of transportation. And this we really needs to be addressed. And unfortunately, there's been nobody on any of these committees, perhaps, who really represents or advocates individuals with disabilities, and you can't operate in a vacuum. And that's, one of the purposes of our commission is to, make the county and people who are making decisions in the county, that there are, a whole community of, 20% of Baltimore County residents have some type of disability, and their needs need to be addressed. Barry?
Good.
Very interesting. I have two questions, I guess a comment that I'd like you to comment on. I did not know, after all these years, that County Ride provided transportation to the general public in rural Baltimore County. I have never heard that come up. So can you tell me a little bit more about that and how people access it through the regular County Ride reservation system?
Mary, it is actually through, again, it's the rural part of the county. I think on the County Ride website, they actually show a map that, or at least in some literature I have, that County Ride that shows has a map showing that area. It is, though, demand response, similar to the services in the rest of the county. It is a demand response services where people need to call in and schedule the rides. It's not like, when I say general public, people might think it's a bus running on a set schedule. And in some rural areas, you may have that. That's not the case with County Ride. It serves the rural parts of the county, but it is all through the system, the scheduling system that other trips are scheduled through. So
I'm glad I know that now.
I don't know if, I don't want to speak for County Ride. I don't know if they limited the outreach. It's in all their marketing materials. I don't know if, again, the demand for that probably hasn't been great because obviously it's in the rural part of the county. I don't know if they downplayed that because of the fact that, obviously there are those capacity constraints, but that service is available for someone who lives outside the urbanized area in Baltimore County. Ben, if I can go back to your point too about, we had an advisory committee for this planning process. I'm pretty sure one of our recommendations will be to more formalize actually the advisory capacity for not just for County Ride, but hopefully the expansion of transportation services in Baltimore County going forward too. I believe County Ride does have, advisory committee with so they get input that way, but we will probably recommend a more structured committee in the future. And I would, obviously, people with disabilities needs to be represented on that. That would either come through the commission or other agencies or organizations too that serve people with disabilities.
My second question is, I know that over the last like 3 years, maybe 3 years ago, the MTA dropped a lot of their routes and adjusted their routes. And that, I think, has recently happened again, where they're dropping routes and adjusting routes. I don't know. Is that information impacting what you all are doing at all?
There is plans, I think actually in January right now was the plan to actually reduce some services. I guess, unfortunately, the MTA has been, like other public transit systems around the country, have been impacted by COVID and lack of ridership. And so there are some changes they're making. Yes, we're not happy with the fact that they're making changes because it impacts transit, but also the fact that right in the middle of our, even though this is not an MTA plan, we are taking the MTA services into account. And so it looks like some of these modifications may not happen until after the first year and after we'll be done our planning process. So what we're trying to do is take into account our recommendations and our alternatives for improving services that will be flexible enough, the fact that no matter what happens to the MTA services, there will be opportunities to expand services in Baltimore County. And we'll kind of complement. I mean, again, we talk about this as the challenge of Baltimore County. We talk about the services, transit services separately in a way, like how County Ride operates, but then obviously the MTA services that run into the county. And then it was brought up earlier about the regional effort too. Obviously there's other regional needs. People's needs don't stop. I'll just think of Catonsville. They get to the bridge going out Frederick Road to Howard County or to Route 40. People's needs don't stop at those bridges, and so we recognize that from that standpoint of a more regional perspective. The thing is that we are focused on this plan on what can in Baltimore County, but we obviously could take it all into account. Well, one last thing. We'll hope the fact that, again, I don't know what will happen to the MTA services and their changes. They're a little bit out of our control in this planning process, but we will take them into account and again, develop some recommendations that allow and still expand and improve services in Baltimore County.
Well, it would be a wonderful thing if Baltimore County could pick up the routes that MTA has dropped. I don't ride the buses, so I don't have personal experience with this, but he's not young anymore, but a fellow that I help support, has always taken the bus from Towson to Parkville to go to the Y. And now he can only take the bus from Towson to Loch Raven and Joppa. And then he's got to walk 1.5 miles to get to the Y. I think the MTA has really been short-sighted, and I understand their constraints, but people have to live. And the eastern side of the county often is takes the hit.
That's a good point. One thing we are looking at is how obviously the MTA went through a restructuring several years ago, as you know, and we're taking a look at any areas that potentially then Baltimore County just operate services, especially connecting different communities, but also need to take into account, and I really haven't totally absorbed myself yet, all the potential changes that in January too. So we'll also take that into account. That was also one of the things that came out of the regional plan that's going, which I think is still kind of in a final draft format, was there some different connections between different areas. I think the Towson Parkville area, for instance, was one that was pretty on the list from that standpoint. So
Thank you.
So we would definitely take all that into account. Again, Jay and I had a brief conversation yesterday, and again, this is a plan, and will be a lot of opportunities in there. Bottom line, everything always, as you all know, comes down to funding and the effort behind that too. But we hope is to leave a plan that will leave the blueprint for that then in the future.
Yeah. Thank you, Dan. We can move to the next item on the agenda is the award nomination. And Basically, behind the scenes, we've been reviewing nominations. We'll probably try right after this meeting for several of us who are on the review process to stick on the call, and we can finalize. But we have several good nominations. The plans are to do a virtual presentation where we will record the individuals who are receiving the awards for their comments. Kathleen Cairns agreed to be, at this point, the MC again. We need to figure out how we're going to work all that in together, as well as with Johnny O as a participant and honoring these award winners. So some of that we've worked on. Jay's been working on putting some of that together. And as far as the awards themselves, I believe Doug is going to write the write-ups that we usually write up and present it in the certificate. So I think in answer to several earlier questions, we're working, with this, with a small committee group. And I think we did send out a date and a time, which would be the third Wednesday in October. And I believe that the time, Jay, was at 5 or 6 o'clock.
I think the agreement was on 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. David has 6 fingers up. So thank you, David. So hopefully the few that have been working on the nominations, if we can stick around after this call and finalize our nominees. We've got some, as usual, some good nominations, and we hope to move forward with that. Any other comments? Jay, do you have any comments to make on the program?
I think we're in pretty good shape. There's a certain amount of staff work that I'm going to be doing. I've distributed nominations, and we're very well along in the selection of the winners per se. I'll be contacting again county executive staff, communications staff. As some of you know, Terry Parrish is on a temporary, very short leave, and she did get to me today some contact information for Mr. Glock, a photographer. It's really important that we start assembling visual content, audio content, written content. We have good written content, but it needs to be polished up, as Ben said. But this is going to be a video package with either moving video footage or still photographs and a slideshow, some kind of combination of all those factors. So we're going to finalize these award winners, and then I'm going to start contacting people, professional communications people and the award winners themselves, and start sorting through how to get content. Because we're not going to be at a giant luncheon watching people on a stage. It's going to be a different animal. So that's all for now.
Thank you, Jay. The last item we have on the agenda has to do with a letter that I sent to the superintendent of Baltimore County Schools. And a few of you did make some comments on the letter before it went out. It was basically if we opened up in person, but what do we do with the students with special needs, those students with IEPs? How are their needs going to be addressed? And of course, the school system has opened up virtually, but some of these issues are still present. What do we do to address the need of that student who has an IEP? so that they don't fall behind in their educational endeavors. So it was to let them know that our population that we represent, their needs need to be addressed. I was on I guess a town hall meeting at one point that was of the dealing with the issue of education, and again raised the issue with regard to virtual learning and IEP process and the like. And so the county educational people are aware of the needs and are working toward resolving the issues to see that these individuals get the education that is needed.
Ben,
Yes, Jay.
I have one more when we're finished with the letter. One more item on the agenda, maybe I left it off, is to approve the minutes from the July 15 meeting, which were part of the package sent out.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor of accepting the minutes as presented? Ayes. Any opposed? All right, the minutes stand as presented. My only comment, yes, Greg?
Can I ask a real quick question, Ben? And I don't know, it's more personal. I received an email from Terry about maybe a month and a half ago about a new process for basically re-upping to be on the commission. And she said that she kind of, it was sent out to 5 or 6 of us, that there was a new process and that we would be receiving a follow-up email about moving forward with that. And I haven't heard anything. And I was just wondering if that was the same. I know Callie and a couple other folks were on that as well. I didn't want to make sure I didn't miss something.
Okay, I'm going to have to let Jay respond to that.
Hi, Greg. Good to speak
Hi
with
there.
you. The county stood up a electronic portal management system for all boards and commissions. And it's been on my things to do, but I didn't do it yet, is to give you a phone call, but here it is, here and now. You should have received an email from Granicus Labs or something like that. And
Yeah, that's what Terry had said would be coming, but I have not received that.
okay, well, I'll go in the system and I'll do it again.
Okay,
And it might be in your email box from August 7. And it could be, one of the things I'm dealing with is I inherited, a nice spreadsheet with all the commission names. Then we have this
Yeah.
electronic portal that has, all commission data as well. They're not always the same. Sometimes an email is out of date, and the portal system kind of has all these legacy emails. But anyway, the short of it is, you were in the hopper, so to speak. We told the system to send you the email. I'll double check it, and we'll make sure that that process gets sorted out and underway ASAP.
great, thanks, Jay.
Okay.
Yeah. Just one other note in passing. We had sent out a request to all our commissioners to comment with respect to a waiver of actually a construction or renovation of a church in Baltimore County from the ADA standards. And I only got back out of the full commission, only received like 4 or 5 responses with respect to comments. And in the future, I really would appreciate it if, you just reply negative or positive with respect to what we send out so we can move forward and let the county know, the ADA coordinator know whether we're granting an exception to process that our commission has is part of the process of granting an exception to ADA standards when it comes time for any renovation or construction in buildings within Baltimore County. So we're in the process to be able to say that we agree with the exception that's been requested, or we don't agree with the exception that's been requested. And that's one of the important parts of our mission and the process that's been put together for granting exceptions. With that, I appreciate, yes, Mary?
Whoops, wait a minute. Can we please have a letter from Terry or Ben to Jay Ringgold about his service on the Commission for Disabilities all these years, because he is now retiring from Baltimore County, and I think it would be appropriate us to in this way acknowledge him. One other comment. I was incredibly disappointed in the attendance at the July strategic planning meeting for the entire commission. I feel like our attendance has really dropped off. The same faces that we see on this screen every time. People who got a lot of money from the commission didn't participate in the strategic planning process, in the live part of it. I don't know how you're deciding who to re-invite to be on the commission, but I think when we're re-inviting people, that we need to make it clear that there's some responsibilities that come with membership on the commission, that you need to show up. So I hope that comes up in the conversation with people. If people aren't able to show up or send a representative for the important stuff that we're doing, like strategic planning, for Pete's sake, then they shouldn't be on the commission. We'll find somebody else. I don't think it's a right. Just because you're the head of an agency or this or that or the other thing, that you have a place at the table. If you're not going to post, there you have it.
I second Mary's remarks. Jay,
Yes, sir.
could you refresh my memory going back to the other subject? I know I looked at this exception they requested. I know I didn't like it, but I can't remember what the exception was, and I can't remember why I didn't like it. Can you, can you help me get back to what the context? It's been a few months.
I feel like Ben Duman is the best expert.
Ben, go ahead.
Ben,
You there, Ben?
Yeah.
you were
Yeah.
quiet for a while.
If you just refresh my memory, it'll come back to me, Ben. I just can't remember why I was annoyed with the exception request, and maybe I was just off base. I don't know.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if there was one comment that came back about a ramp, but I don't know if that was you or not. Whether the ramp was an accessible ramp. This church was an old church. It was not on a historic preservation list. It probably should have been. But the work that they needed to do was probably architecturally impossible because of load-bearing walls. And if it was if it had been on the historic preservation list, it probably would have met some of the exceptions.
Okay, well, you may be on track then. I might have been just objecting to the path of travel, the non-modification, given that they were modifying, they should have looked at path of travel. But if they can't really modify the building and it's an old building, then I'll withdraw my objection and say we should send the letter and get it off our plate.
Thank you, Mike. We already sent the letter in.
Oh, I thought you were saying that you hadn't sent it. Okay.
No, the letter did go in. I mean, the responses that I got back were positive enough to be able to say that we accepted the waiver.
Okay, my apology. I can't hear very well. Sometimes the background noise gets a little cluttery, so it's hard for me to tell.
No
All right,
problem.
thank you.
Just
I
one
get
other
in a
thing.
second what Mary said. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mary and Mike. Just one other note that Carrie did send me an email this morning. She indicated that Paulette Spriggs had passed away.
Yeah.
We have lost several of our commissioners this past year. So hearing no other business, if we can adjourn, and those individuals who were on the call, who are involved with the selection process, if you would stay on, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks again for the opportunity.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Has left the meeting. A participant has left the meeting.
Okay, are we in good shape?
Should be a lot quieter.
Ah, peaceful. I wish I was at the beach. I'm not at the beach.
Well, I'm sorry.
Was Sally on the process? She's still on?
Who's Sally Wagner?
I am not. I'm trying to sign off.
Okay, see you, Sally.
Thank you, Sally.
I apologize. I'm trying to sign off. I obviously had a lot of computer issues with this.
Just hit the X.
I did. Leave meeting.
All right. So
let me just share. I was very confused because Jay had a lot of difficulty opening the various things. I wasn't even sure who that Chimes group is. I'm not opposed to it. I don't know if I've seen that one. So maybe Doug, you can just tell us, since you came up with that clever idea about a virtual group, what was their application? Who is it and what is it?
So they're with the COVID shutting down the programs, we went virtual, and a lot of staff are doing very elementary, boring type of things, right? Lack of creativity. These two young ladies came forward with incredible creativity that has grown engagement and participation. So literally what they're doing is they're putting on science lab coats, goggles, creating a theme. They're doing science experiments. They're out in the parking lot, lighting things on fire.
I think I did see it. What was it? It didn't come in as chimes. It came in as just individual names or something, right?
Right.
Probably Grace Sims and Ashley Chambly.
Okay, that's where I was confused because I didn't see the word chimes anywhere.
right, and I didn't. The same thing. I didn't realize it was Chimes until the other day
Gotcha.
when I went back and reread it.
Yeah, so I thought virtual advocates. That's fine. It's a good.
Yeah. So I think there was the latest. I think Doug had put together some suggestions with some maybe classifications. Do you want to run those again, Doug?
What I sent last night?
Yeah.
So Mary had recommended that the doctor be the advocate of the year. And Jay had mentioned about having 2 employee of the year awards. And I thought it might be better to distinguish the 2 versus it giving 2 people the same thing. And then my mind went to, since they're doing virtual and really everybody's doing virtual in 2020, that I thought it was a creative spin and might be appropriate for, the situation we're in.
So that the Chimes would be the virtual employees of the year?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not the Chimes. It's these two individuals that we're honoring as the virtual employees of the year, I guess, right?
Correct.
And they happen to work for Chimes, but we usually focus on not the agencies, but the individuals.
But it did come in the door as an advocate award. So I support Doug's suggestion, but we're kind of rearranging some of the deck chairs to make things fit. And
We do it every year, Jay.
We do it every year.
Yeah.
so if we put the woman from Hopkins as the advocate, which Mary, lobbied for, and I'm okay with it, it means that we have, the guy who was the employee nominee who works with the police department, which everybody liked. I think he had 4 or 5 yes votes. Now he's going to get bumped out. If we shifted the Chimes award, the two individuals, because I think that is a good employee award. And it wasn't clear that they work for the Chimes. The only reason I kind of saw it is that the email address of the nominator, and I think the nominees is, their Chimes emails. So we kind of put that together. So I think we have consensus on 7 awards.
Well, what we're saying is that the police officer would still be employee of the year. We're going to create an additional award that would be virtual employee advocate of the year. So we would have really 8 awardees instead of 9. Instead of 7.
No, I think we're going to have 7.
Hey, Jay, can you put up the spreadsheet? I think make sure we're all on the same page. I think it'll make it much clearer.
Yes.
I could be wrong, but the employee of the year, I think in the past has generally been an individual with a disability.
Correct.
So there's been employee of the year and there's been employee advocate of the year is what we've had in the past. The employee would be an individual. Employee advocate would be someone working.
So these two individuals from Chime, or excuse me, so the two individuals who are dressed up in lab coats, really don't fit into the category that we've used in the past as employee of the year.
Let's just go through this list.
Can I speak for a minute?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that pardon me a sec. Okay, the accessibility award I think is done.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Grace Sims and Ashley Chambly, as this sheet says, they were originally suggested to be an advocate. They have 1, 2, 3, 4 yes votes that we like the nomination, but we have a conflict if we take the third item on this list, Dr. Massey, and make her the advocate. You see that, Mary?
But Jay, we're all in agreement with Doug's suggestion that switch them from advocate to virtual advocate or whatever Doug whatever
I
you.
love it. I'm so happy. I'm just kind of explaining how we got there.
That's all right.
Okay. So I'll change them to virtual employee.
Virtual advocate.
Yeah, I think virtual advocate.
Okay.
It works.
Yeah.
I think Mary, and I don't disagree with her, she got into the fine print about, Dr. Massey being a better advocate than an employee.
Right.
She's
Absolutely.
employed by Johns Hopkins University. you know, that's why she does all the stuff she does related to disabilities, because she's an employed by a university. It's her job. I think she's okay as an employee, but I'm willing to move along.
Well, Joe,
I think
excuse
that-
me, I don't really find that Grace and Ashley, they're not really advocates.
I agree.
When you think of an advocate, you think of somebody going out there and advocating for people with disabilities that they can do things, and promoting individuals with disabilities. So I see the doctor, as an advocate, as a role model. So
I think Grace and Ashley are frontline employees of the Chimes that did good creative work, that does a great service. So I think that they can be virtual employee of the year and just leave out the advocate.
What was that word that Doug or Ben just said that because I agree with Ben that usually the employee of the year was someone with a significant disability that showed up at work every day and, collected the carts for Giant Food, that kind of thing. That's always been our employee. It's an employee with a significant disability who overcome those challenges to be a great employee.
Yes. And so what we had in addition to that was what we called Employee Advocate of the Year.
Gotcha.
Which then went to somebody that, whether disabled or not, they were working in the field to help promote people with disabilities. No, because I won in 2013. It's right there behind me.
That's right. I was just thinking as you were describing Grace and Ashley, this is DSP week, and they really are great examples of great direct service providers. Would you agree, Doug?
Yeah, but Grace is a supervisor.
Okay.
So we couldn't, it would be weird if we called him a DSP.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So employee advocate, virtual employee advocate.
right.
Everybody agreed?
Yep.
I'm good with it. And I appreciate we keeping them in there. I think they deserve it. They're
It's great.
pretty well.
Let me check the system. I might have, I muted Mary. That's my fault. Mary, can you hear us?
Is she still muted?
She's muted and we lost her picture.
She's muted.
I keep hitting the button and it stays that way.
And she's gone.
She's probably lost her connection. Or had to go out to the beach.
Grace Sims and Ashley Chambly are virtual employee advocate award winners.
Yep.
Okay, now this sheet will get revised, but Dr. Terry Massey Burrell is now the advocate winner. I think we
Correct.
agreed on that.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. And Glenn Myers is just a straight ahead employee winner.
Right.
And the employer is Culinary Services Group, which is a nomination that came in from Catholic Charities food service provider employer.
Good.
Student Bryce Menunez. I think that's pretty straightforward.
Right.
And Brandy Corriggio is the teacher.
Yeah, unfortunately, there was really nothing exceptional in the teacher category this year.
I tend to agree.
Yeah, and I mean, this other fellow, I don't know what school he taught at. So
We don't have to have we can just leave the teacher out. I mean, we're not obligated to do it. I'm sorry, Mary dropped off because she's the teacher advocate. But sometimes it's better we're just not going to award that one.
I mean, we've got a 3-2, so, unless anybody wants to change, we can leave them as, as the teacher of the year.
I can't even remember now what.
Person was really a supervisor, been in Battle Creek School for years.
I just got a text from Mary, lost my connection, can't dial in. Have fun sorting it out.
Okay, we have the power. We have the power. Oh, God. What I remember about Brandy Corrigan now is that I think she was at Battle Elementary School.
Yeah, Battle Elementary School, Battle
And,
Monument.
It was an extensive, I don't know, list of things that she does, but it was just a list.
Well, it was her job description.
Right.
I mean, didn't go beyond her job description. I mean, if we recognize her for the number of years that she's been there and that she stayed in special ed, it's a special ed school itself.
That's a benefit. I mean, to me, sometimes, this can be a little bit about public relations. And if that's a special ed school and you have a frontline staffer with a lot of years, it was not a poetic nomination, but, maybe it meets the minimum standard.
Yeah, I think politically we need to have a teacher of the year because of our relationship with Baltimore County School System, and they've supported a lot of what we've done, and all the luncheons that they've come to and the nominations. We probably would have gotten a stronger nomination had it not been for COVID. But I think we need to keep, a teacher of the year award in there.
Well, and what I'll do when I write the award that's going to be read, because I usually re-wordsmith those things. I'm not going to read it like a job description, so I'm going to have to kind of try to make a little story out of it for Kathleen to read to everyone. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's great.
Do you happen to know, I'm just trying to look it up here. Oh, there it is. Okay, it's in Dundalk. I was trying to make sure that Battle Monument was in the county.
Yeah.
I always thought it was in the city. Okay,
No, it's Baltimore County School. It's,
okay.
like a White Oak or the one over on Charles Street.
Yeah, I know the school well just by reputation, but for some reason I pictured it was over here in the city. All right, that's good. So we'll keep it in there.
Excellent.
All right, so we got the winners.
I believe we have it.
Yep.
I'll modify this list, but I think we have it.
All right, and Doug, you have all the write-ups? If you need Jay to send them to you again, or do you have them all?
I'm going to do you a favor. I know that you guys got the PDFs, and David, I apologize
It's okay.
about the PDFs. I just kind of banged them out. They came in electronically, and I processed PDFs all the stupid time. Anyway, I'm carving out all the text from the PDFs, and I'm putting it in a nice, clean Word document. And, and it's also going to give me, proper name, phone number, address, so I can contact whoever I need to contact, and we can do photo shoots and whatever we need to do. So, very soon, Doug, I'm going to send that nice, clean sheet of the 7 people to you.
Okay.
And then you'll have a nice, clean document that you can cut and paste and work with.
Okay.
All right, and Jay, so are you going to call the award winners or send them letters? What is your plan at this point?
Let me ask you guys, I appreciate you all, responding to the emails to judge this stuff. I hope we can agree that the 5 of us are, quote unquote, the awards committee, for now.
Right.
Because I've done these kind of things and I'm the county guy, and I used to work in the County Office of Communications. My focus right now is to process how do we start putting a show together. So let me ask this, that I'm free to, via phone or email, make contact with the nominators. I guess just in say, you know, I don't want to get hung up on a formal letter. I want to call these people and say that we need to talk to you about maybe doing a photo shoot, maybe getting still photographs to try and build a story from these nominations. And the formal letter will come when it comes, but, you
That's
know,
fine.
thank you so much.
That's fine. Yeah, and those that did not win eventually, before the event, if you can do it by, you know, the first week in October, send a letter out to the nominators that their, you know, recommendation did not, you know, was not selected as an award winner. So if we can let them know also.
Yes. And I think another step is the whole invitation process. And, you know, we really don't know right now, is this going to be a WebEx or is this going to be a YouTube video? Are we going to do anything, you know, live, or is it all just going to be one canned video? I know that Terry Parrish's preference was that it be one straight canned video, because she saw something else and it got a little clumsy. It's always a little clumsy, you know, in the virtual world. So to me, I just want to get some content rolling one way or another. And I got the contact information for Mr. Glock. And I've got a colleague in county communications because, you know, all candor, I'm going to try and get county communications to handle the county executive message. And
Right. And I watched something the other night. It was supposed to be on Zoom, and it had already been pre-recorded, and it was on a YouTube. And so we switched to a YouTube presentation. I just watched a YouTube as opposed to a Zoom presentation. You know, it would be nice if we could do it with Zoom, but I don't think practically it's going to work.
Yeah, Ben, we did this, you know, for our fundraiser, and we did use Zoom, but it's a Zoom. I forgot what it's called. It's not your standard Zoom. It was a Zoom seminar or what, a webinar mode, and we just took all the compiled videos. So I had a little thank you video that I did and sent it in, and one of our staff pulled it all together. And it started with the board chair welcoming people, then went to I can't remember, somebody else doing something else, and then we did have a live cook doing a training, but it really wasn't live. He recorded that. So I think, you know, we get Kathleen Carnes to do a little clip. We can even, if this gets really complex, the winners can be offered 2 minutes to accept their award, but that's going to be really complicated because you got to be a little bit sophisticated to be able to record something and then get it in, because you record it on your phone, it's a huge file, and how do you send it and all that. So
Block was going to go out and do that. He was going to go out to each award winner and do a video, an actual video, not on. I don't think it was on a phone. It was on professional equipment.
Yeah, just make sure that you limit them to 2 minutes, because this whole thing can't really be much more than a half hour, 40 minutes at the most, because nobody's going to sit there and watch it.
Right.
So that's the key is, opening, middle, closing, you're done, thank you, all that.
David, was it on a regular Zoom format where you saw everybody who dialed into the system?
No, we chose not to do that, but it was just too much. So you couldn't see. It was, it's like when you go to a webinar where there's hundreds of people.
Just a streaming.
You only see the presenter and their screen. But I think, no, I couldn't even see who the people were. There's not even a participant list, which I was kind of disappointed with, because I would have liked to see who were all these people who came to the league's fundraiser. But that was not in there. So, but
Well, you wanted to send them a letter. You wanted to send them a letter and ask for money. That's right.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Jay?
Heads up. Yeah, Mr. Glock, and David, this involves you a little bit. The premise of having Mr. Glock work with us at this level is, number one, is that he's going to be paid some, he's going to be paid a fee. And Terry's understanding is that there's $2,000 in the bank to handle that. Now, we don't think, we're not expecting 7 location shoots. Okay. So I don't think we have the budget for that. I'm not the guy, but if you start processing this in your head, you're throwing your gear in your truck, you're going to wherever, there's COVID, and we haven't even really gamed out like one interview, which is what I want to do ASAP. And so anyway, we got to handle this, political sensitivity that not everybody's going to get quote unquote equal treatment. I'm not going to get a whiz bang video, but I'm an award winner. I'm asking that we kind of start crossing that bridge together.
Jay,
Yeah.
I'm just going to suggest a simple way to do it is just you can get their headshot or go out and take their picture, and then that just gets posted, and then it's just audio. Say, I'm so honored to get this award. Thank you so much, and it's just recorded off of the phone. I mean, that's a simpler way.
I'm just going to ask, Terry is on leave, and, I think that I'm going to keep an open mind. First of all, if we don't have any moving video that we don't have, then this thing's going to be 6 minutes long. And, the idea was, that Mr. Glock was going to have a living, breathing interview, with a person. Now, I'm just going to think out loud, okay? The Chimes team, they're blowing stuff up. Can we get footage of that? That could be cool. So
Yeah.
I want us to try and how do we make this thing live and breathe and kind of be cool? We got a guy who's doing mobile eyewear. Let's get some B-roll shot of his truck. And, I don't know what we can pull off, but that's why, we got the award winners. I got some phone numbers. I was a journalist. Kathleen Cares was a journalist. And just let us, do our thing and see what we can put up with. And same with Mr. Glock. So I think we should let this kind of live and breathe and, understand what kind of content we can put in, and it's not going to all be the same.
So what I was envisioning, and I'm okay either way, whether it's pre-recorded or what. I'm just wondering, are we being too stale if we pre-record? So what I was envisioning originally when I mentioned doing the videos was we would have all participants come in, you mute everybody. Kathleen would be there live, being the MC. And for instance, she would say, the commission would like to award Dr. So-and-so as Advocate of the Year. And then she shares her screen, which has a YouTube video, just like you said, of the Grace and them blowing something up and a little thank you, and boom, on to the next one. I think by that, then, it allows everyone to kind of come together. It's more of a live event. I think if we have flaws, I think that just adds character to it.
We have character. We have so much character.
I think it just adds it adds more intimacy versus hoping people will watch it pre-recorded kind of event. I do think whatever we do, I think we need to carve out some time for a rehearsal dinner and do a run through. The live event was pretty turnkey. It's same thing every year. Everybody knows their part. But anytime you use technology, we need to work out those bugs before we go live and see what our flaws are going to be before. That's my 2 cents.
And that's the reason for pre-recording it, because you don't have to worry about the flaws.
Sorry about that.
And I worry mostly about, because of the live events that we've had, I've always wanted the shepherd's hook to pull people off the damn stage, because they just go on, and then somebody else comes, they're very humble, and thank you so much, I can't thank you enough, and then they walk off, and so it's not all balanced, whereas you can balance it all out, where everybody's getting their 2 minutes.
Well, and that's what I'm thinking. We don't let the awardees speak, right? They're pre-recorded, uploaded to YouTube, and then Kathleen says, we're here to honor blah blah blah. She shares her screen, which is
Okay.
a YouTube video.
I'm good with that.
If she does it right, if she's got 2 screens up, she can have her stuff queued on one side and her video on the other side. And then when she shares, it's streamlined. It goes right to the video and then boom to the next thing. Does that make sense? And then
That works.
we don't let anyone speak other than Kathleen, Terry, and whoever we choose, and everyone else stays muted. And if they're obnoxious, then the host boots them.
I think that,
I'm assuming Johnny O we would record him,
yes,
because the chance of having him live, it just is. So it seems like that would be a lot easier.
I agree. I think the idea that Kathleen is the only living, breathing person who's actually live, is pretty good.
Yeah.
She's talented. She knows how to do this business. She's a pro. And that way, some long-winded speech, we're not going to worry because it's going to be edited already.
Right. All right, well, I think you've got some direction, Jay, to move forward. And
Yeah.
we're available for, working with you, helping. And I'm sure Mary, when she gets back from the ocean, will be there too.
So thanks. I think we're great. Here's trial balloon number 1. And Doug, that comes to you. I'm assuming Grace and Ashley, I don't know, are they on the other side of that door blowing something up?
Well, actually, Grace is off this week, and Ashley is downstairs out of earshot. So
Okay.
I don't know.
Well,
I don't
anyway,
know.
here's the trial balloon is, can you, through your own devices, independently, without Mr. Glock, put together or sketch out, let's say 1.5 minutes of video that captures the spirit of what they're doing. I would say that the time frame for this video clip would be starting at 45 seconds to a maximum of 1 minute 45, and you can modify that. But so that's a trial balloon. Like I'm gonna talk to Mr. Glock, and in my own head, I'm gonna say what are like the the coolest stories that we have, if you will, among these nominees, and just kind of be a journalist and start figuring it out. But we can if we can divide and conquer, and since you kind of have these in-house, folks, and they're already operating in a visual environment, they either can or they can't. But
Just record it.
What? Yeah.
Just record their upcoming session, and I would even tell them that we want to record a little piece because you're getting this award. So do something that shows a lot of action. Yeah, a volcano.
They
But
did that.
good video, good video isn't just turning a camera on and doing your normal shtick for 45 minutes. So, just kind of process that. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, kind of just as an example, what I'm envisioning is, Kathleen will read the actual nomination. She'll cue their video. And then, for instance, maybe you have the two of them there in the parking lot in their getup. One's holding a fire extinguisher. Something's on fire behind them. And they're standing there going, thank you. We really appreciate it. I don't know if they'll go for that. They're both a little shy, but
I love it.
But
Yeah.
Now the other little trial balloon is that I'm going to talk to Mr. Glock, but like somebody's going to be the master of the video, and he might say, "Oh my God, Ashley, they gave me this crappy video. It's low resolution. It's this or that," and we'll cross that bridge another day. But let's just get the wheels going on. Okay, we're going to put together a 1.5-minute clip, and we're going to figure out what it is, how we do it, what we wear, where we are, and then maybe they can shoot it in 3 days from now or 10 days, and then maybe Glock comes back and shoots it again. But just get the wheels going.
yeah, I mean, like Battle Monument is likely closed, so maybe we're just stuck with the teacher standing out front of the school, hand shot of the school, zoom in on the teacher, thanking the commission, and blah blah blah. Kind of thing. So, but yeah, I think we should give them some guidance on some scripts. That way, it's not canned and stale.
Yeah, we don't want to be canned. We don't want to be stale.
Okay.
All right, we good for now?
All right, we're good. Thank you all.
We
All
can,
right. See y'all.
we can have Mike interview him. He always adds some humor to everything.
He does. He does. I got to run.
See you guys.
All right, bye now. Thanks.
Bye.